Your 20s could be the most productive years of your life. Let me tell you the story about in my own life how that's true. So, I'm 42 years old right now, and I just started to learn about a lot of this financial stuff, the S&P 500 and index funds, all, financial independence within the last few years, okay? Now, the one good thing that we were doing the last 10 years, mostly due to my wife, was we were paying down our house the last 10 years, and um, praise God, we actually paid off our house this year in 2025. So that is one good thing. So now, because our house is paid off, that leaves our expenses very low because we're not paying for a mortgage, which allows us to invest more money into index funds. This is not financial advice. But let's go back and let me just share with you a little bit of my story, and let's see if I had done things just a little different. Now, first of all, my whole life, I didn't want a I didn't want a job I hated. Okay, so when I was younger, I was like, I'm going to be in the NBA, right? Because who doesn't want to, if you love basketball, who doesn't want to get paid to play basketball, right? Oh, I'll just be in the NBA and I'll make money and I'll do something I love. Okay. Well, junior year, I get hurt. And anyway, that dream wasn't panning out anyway. So then I moved over to music. Okay, well, then I guess I'll just make music. I can sing, so I'll make music and I'll get paid that way. Now, the whole goal behind was, again, I just wanted to do something that I love and get paid for it. And that's the way that I saw that I had to do in order to do that. So in my story, I end up being forced to go to college. I say forced. I'm so happy I did, but my parents had already paid for it, and so I was like, all right, whatever. So I went to college. Now, when I got out of college at 22, I got a job within a couple weeks because my dad was like, on my butt, like, hey, you're not just gonna lay around here. This isn't college anymore. Okay, time for the real world. So I got a job working at Hertz Equipment Rental. My degree was in journalism at the University of Florida, and so had nothing to do with that. But because I had a degree, I got the job. So I came out of school. This was back in 2000, say five, making about 42,000 a year. Okay. Now, and I worked there from 22 to about 24, and then decided to go and pursue my dream of becoming a famous musician. Okay. And so at 24, I leave and go out to California. And so what my actual story was going out to California, struggling, racking up about $50,000 of debt, spending almost 5 years out there. It was a great time. I rededicated my life to God, which was super great in 2008, but stayed out there till about the end of 2011. Okay, so went out there in '07 and was out there till about 2011. So let's see, that would have made me 28 when I came back, and I would end up turning 29 in the beginning of 2012. So I went out when I was 24, came back when I was almost 29. Financially, I was in the trash. I mean, I think by that time I had paid off my $50,000 in debt through different settlement options and stuff. But I basically had no savings at 29 years old, couple thousand in the bank, and that was it. No Roth IRA, no 401k, none of those things. Met my future wife, and her mom's like, well, how are you going to support my daughter? And I'm like, and at the time I'm just doing music and pursuing music and serving tables at, Carrabba's Italian Grill. And so I end up getting in a new trade at 29, 30 years old in HVAC, and then struggled, okay, those 4 years working under my dad, learning AC, and then continued to struggle through my 30s, working very hard. And like I said, doing one good thing over the last 10 years, which was paying down our house. That was a really good thing. But not knowing about index funds, not knowing about investments, and really just a few years ago, getting started on beginning to invest, okay? So I lost a lot of time. Now, let me give you a totally different scenario that could have happened that would have set myself up. I'm so happy everything worked out the way that it did because I have a wonderful family. I love my life. But had I done something different, uh, financially, things would be looking a lot better in my 20s. So I'm 22 years old. Let's just follow the same trajectory. I get a job at Hertz Equipment Rental. Let's say I work there for 3 years. Now, I worked there for about a year and a half, almost 2 years, but and I was living at home, okay? So I'm 22. I was living at home. I was paying a little bit of rent, $200 a month or something, but my expenses were super low. So let's just say between $750 and $1,000. I was making about 42,000, 44,000, something like that per for the year. So I was probably able to save about 3 grand uh, during that time per month if I was doing it right, if I was not buying the newest music equipment, etc. So let's use that example. So let's say at 22, let's say I save $3,000 per year. $3,000 per year times 12 months is about $36,000 per year. So when I'm 24 years old, or even into 25, let's say I've saved up 36,000 times 3, and for numbers working toward 100K, let's just say it was 33,000 per year. So 33,000 per year, or 33,333 per year times 3 years, where you're at 100,000. Okay, so let's say I was living at home, paying my rent to my parents, but I was able to save up $100,000 over 3 years. Okay. So now I'm age 24, 25, and let's say I work 3 more years and do the same exact thing. Okay. Save $3,000 per month. Don't blow my money on a brand new car or get the newest things. Just stay within that range and save up another $100,000. I would have been about 27, 28, let's even say maybe 29 years old with $200,000, okay? Now, let's say at that time when I was 29, let's say I go and buy a house. At that time when I was 29, I think that was, 2012 would have been 29. I could have bought a house in 2012 for probably $100,000. So let's say I took one of those $100,000 and used it to buy a house. Now I'm 29 years old. I have another $100,000, or say 100 to 150,000 with that savings rate. That 100 or $150,000 at 27, 28, 29 will eventually basically be my retirement. If I invest that, this is not financial advice, but if I would have invested that into the S&P 500 at say 8 to 10% growth, at 10% growth, that money is going to double every 7 years. And so let's just do the math real quick. Let's say I'm 29 years old and I have 150,000 in there. And remember, I have a house paid off now. Okay, I bought a house. So that expense is taken out. Now I have $150,000 in the S&P 500 when I'm, say, 28. We'll just say 29 years old, 150,000. So if it's every 7 years, when I'm 35, that 150 is going to turn into 300,000. When I'm 42, it's going to turn into 700,000. When I'm 49, it's going to be 1.4 million. When I'm 56, I mean, I'm already a millionaire at that point. At 49, I'm done. Like, so at 56, it would be what? 2.8 million. And by 63, it would be $5.6 million. So you're coast fi at that point, meaning at 29 years old, you're basically done. Your expenses, because you have a house paid off and you don't have the newest car and a car payment and you're debt free, you don't have any debt, your expenses could be like $30,000, like easily 29,000. And that's if you have a family of four. Our expenses right now, at family of four, are $29,000. If I was by myself and hadn't met anyone yet, they would be even lower than that. So it is insane that at 29, instead of having nothing like my story was, had nothing, except a bunch of failed dreams of music and stuff. Now, check this out. I wanted to go out and pursue my dream of music in my, at 22 or 24 when I went out there. I wanted to pursue my dream. If I would have sat on that for 6 years and 7 years and done that strategy, at 29, I could have went and pursued my dream of being going to California. I could have done traveling, but I would have been in a lot better spot. I would have been in a spot where my retirement would basically be taken care of. And then I only have to come up with $29,000 a year, which I could serve tables and make $29,000 a year, or work at a music store and make $29,000 a year, or whatever. And then I could still travel. Now you might say, well, I really want to travel when I'm a single 20-year-old. Well, even at that job that you're working at, where I'm making at Hertz Equipment Rental, where I was making 42K a year, you still get 2 weeks paid vacation. So you can still, travel within a certain range. You can't go on some insane trip, but you can go on a trip, put a little bit of that money aside, and still go on your trip in your 20s every year, 2 weeks, and you're good. And so that person, that 29-year-old with a house paid off and $150,000 in the bank, using compound interest, using time, they are like set up for life. If they start, working at a job where now that their house is paid off, say they're working 29,000, maybe they get career advancements and they want to keep, to where they're making 60 or 70K and they're only utilizing 30,000, and they can do it that way, or they can just work at a whatever fun job that they want to do, and they'll be good as long as they don't get into debt again. So that is how busting your tail in your 20s, and not even busting your tail, I mean just, working at a job, not being like, oh, I want to, go explore whatever in my 20s. No, like focusing in your 20s can set you up for life. Important to know what your financial independence number is, what you're shooting for. So if you want to know what your financial independence number is, check out that video right there. Please subscribe.